No awards and proclamations or public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time, so we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of July 13th, 2009. Item 6.2, resolution number 09-6645, authorizing a farm lease agreement for the North Marymount Tracks 1 through 3 with Alvin Ferris in the amount of $3,680 per year for 3 years. Item 6.3, approve the sale of Unit 429 to Ottawa County Fire District Number 4 in the amount of $15,000. Item 6.4, approve the purchase of rescue tools from Air and Fire Systems in the amount of $26,996. Item 6.5, acceptance of public utility and drainage easements dedications in Block 1 of the replat of the Country Oak Estate subdivision.
Is there an item on the consent agenda that any of the commissioners wish to have pulled? If not, I'll ask for action.
I'd move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. There is no development business, so we'll move on to administration.
Item 8.1, second reading, ordinance number 09-10507, providing an amendment to increase the maximum allowable lot coverage from 40% to 45% in the Georgetown Villas addition.
This ordinance was passed on first reading July 13th, and since that time, no comments have been received. Is there any public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 09-10507 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 09-10507 on second reading. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Angel?
Aye.
Commissioner Arpke?
Aye.
Commissioner Peck?
Aye.
Mayor Larson?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.2, second reading, ordinance number 09-10508, amending Chapter 2, Section 2-162 of Salina Code pertaining to membership, appointment, and terms of the Salina Arts and Humanities Commission.
Again, this ordinance was passed on first reading July 13th, and since that time, no comments have been received. Is there any public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd move we adopt ordinance number 09-10508 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 09-10508, amending Chapter 2, Article 7, Section 2-162 of the Salina Code pertaining to membership, appointment, and term of the Salina Arts and Humanities Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Angel?
Aye.
Commissioner Arpke?
Aye.
Commissioner Peck?
Aye.
Mayor Larson?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.3, approve the purchase of an aerial platform truck.
Chief Mulligan?
Mayor, Commissioners, I am Larry Mulligan, your fire chief, and I've got to start out and admit that during a moment of silence there, I had just a small part of that for myself this evening as we consider this truck. This unit is the most expensive piece of fire equipment you own. This is a piece of equipment that we use for large-scale fires, has the most flow capability, is really our battleship of fire apparatus. We buy one of these about every 20 years. As a result, our current aerial platform truck is a 1984 Pierce truck. It is over 20 years old. It is having numerous electrical problems, hydraulic problems, and it's just an aging thing. It's much like airliners and all the new fly-by-wire things. You know, back when I first came into the department, when you pulled a lever, it operated a hydraulic valve directly, and today we're pulling levers and computers are moving things, and as those pieces of equipment age, That's what causes the problems, and they have to be replaced every so often. So this is a 20-year replacement. It's scheduled within the CIP process, and so it's no surprise that this is before you today. You're making a decision today for the next 20 years, essentially. Today we have our apparatus design committee here. Chief Abker, who's one of the battalion chiefs, kind of chairs that group, and it includes fire engineers, people that drive the trucks, fire captains who command those pieces of apparatus, and has a lot of history behind it, a lot of years on this department. Also in attendance today, we've got several manufacturer representatives here today, so you've got several constituents here that's interested in the final process and how we choose the truck and why and the reasoning and that sort of thing. Let me back up to our bid process. Chief Abker and the apparatus committee designed the specifications and sent out bid packets, invitations to bid. We received, there were five sent out, and but it probably was more than 5. We only received 5 back. We probably sent out more than 5, but we got 5 back. 2 of them were discarded initially because they didn't meet the specifications in what I believed would be the most important sections, and that is the financial stability of the vendor. Today, fire apparatus manufacturers are going in and out of business, and NFPA, as well as other organizations who deal in fire apparatus, have stressed and emphasized the need for us not only to evaluate who builds the truck, but how financially stable are they? Because if they go out of business in a few years and we have difficulty getting parts, that presents challenges of its own. We want to make sure that whatever truck that we select, since this is a 20-year purchase, has the greatest degree or confidence that they will be in business tomorrow and the day after. So we received five bids back. The highest bid was from E1 Fire Apparatus. Their bid was there was over $1 million. It was $1,079,000 and some, but they did not. E1 was just emerging and still is right now emerging from bankruptcy, and they couldn't meet the financial requirements contained within the bid specifications. The other one who did not meet that specification was Toyne. Toyne is a privately held company. They're privately owned, and they felt like that would be divulging too much information for the competition, that their financial ability or capacity might give someone a leg up on what they can do and what they can't do. And so as a result, E1 and Toyne was discarded from the acceptable bids. That left us with Pierce Fire Apparatus, Rosenbauer, and Schmiel. And as you read down through here, and I hope you received Dave Turner's attachment that shows some of the breakdowns on some of the bid specifications, his letter of recommendation basically speaks for the apparatus committee to Chief Abker about what they saw as important attributes of the recommendation they were going to make. You see that that there's a difference of opinion. Basically, they had a first and second selection, which is different than mine. The Pierce bid $975,000. You can see that this truck is right at $1 million, thereabouts. With discounts and chassis prepayments, the unit can be purchased for $932,176. Rosenbauer bid $875,842. With chassis prepayment, it can be purchased for $859,682. And Schmiel bid $851,332. With chassis prepayment, it can be purchased for $841,643. We had $1 million budgeted in CIP for this purchase, and all of those acceptable bids were below that. The apparatus committee recommended the Pierce unit for reasons that they explained in the letter, and they're certainly here in the audience to answer any questions that you might have from them. what I wrote, I said, it is the opinion of the fire administration that the Rosenbauer platform truck includes the most critical safety components and will still perform as the department would expect and thus save the city $72,000 over the Pierce truck. The reason I didn't recommend the Schmiel platform truck was basically because we specified a 2,000 gallon a minute pump. The aerial waterway will only flow 1,500 gallons a minute, so you're not using all your pump capability in the waterway up the aerial and its ability to flow water. The waterway is steel, it's chromed steel. We currently have a Schmiel Quint. It has the same type of waterway on it. Right now, that steel, and Chief Adker can tell you about it today, that steel waterway is pitted, the chrome is coming off of it, it's beyond its warranty period. With the chrome that's flaking off it's cutting the seals in the waterway itself and damaging the seals. We're going to spend about $3,000 here shortly to try to fix that. It's out of warranty. The last thing is that the hydraulic system on the Schmiel did not meet the specifications of having a structural warranty of 5 years on the hydraulic system and 3 years on the seals, which I think is important for a new apparatus. And that's the main reasons that I chose not to recommend the Schmiel. So with that, I'll conclude what I have to say and answer any questions that you might have. But my recommendation is to buy the Rosenbauer aerial platform for $859,682. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Chief, you talk about a sheet that might have been attached, and obviously we didn't get that attachment. So was that where you were comparing all the different the qualities of the different bids? And my question, you might have answered it, but I want to make sure I understood. I understand why you're not recommending the Schmiel. Did you mention what the flow is, or how adapt is the Rosenbauer compared to the Pierce?
It meets the specification. The specification calls for a 2,000 gallon a minute waterway, and the Rosenbauer and the Pierce both meet the 2,000 gallons a minute.
Okay, but no more than that. There isn't, you don't have to meet any more than that. That's just the criteria.
Right.
Okay.
The apparatus committee is here, that they can answer any questions for you why they might have. I thought maybe you would have that letter from Dave Turner that explained their reasoning behind that. Did you not get that letter?
No, we did not.
I'd like to invite Dave or whoever he would like to have speak for their recommendation, because they put a lot of work into it, and we had a difference of opinion. You know, mine was basically based on, if you asked me the question, Chief, will the Rosenbauer meet our expectations, I'd have to answer yes. And also knowing that the financial situation that we have, the $79,000 to me became very important.
And I truly appreciate that. With the current one that we have, it's about 25 years old. Did you say that the life expectancy also on the Rosenbauer is 20 years, or is it longer? Because now with modern new technology and newer bells and whistles, I'm assuming that now they possibly might even last 25 years or 28 years.
I have never seen that occur where you get more service life out of a truck. Generally, those service lives become less, not more, even though they have more advanced systems and things of that nature. As they get more sophisticated and we start having problems with them, that's when they need to be replaced. I would recommend that this truck here, in its present configuration, serve no more than 20 years, that we look out there. That's what the National Fire Protection Association recommends, and that's how you need to plan your purchases and turnovers. I would not go into saying, well, it would last 25 or 30. You know, if we had to push a truck longer, we would, but we will experience operational problems just like we have with our current aerial. We have, and Chief Adker can talk about some of the maintenance issues we've had with that truck, because it is, even as old as it is in '84, it still has a number of electronic controls, and we will have problems from time to time, and it won't go to the left sometimes, and we got to figure out, well, how come it won't go to the left, and there's some board that needs to be replaced, or some circuit needs to be replaced, and something like that, and we'll fix that.
And while I understand the prepayment, is the discount that we're going to get a do you trade in the old one for the
No,
new one?
no,
Or what?
no.
What happens to the old one then?
Well, the old truck, and this is something that some hurdle we're going to have to get over, because Scott did call some people who deal in used trucks. Well, they said that this truck has a value of probably about $25,000. I'm not sure of that. I was going to, at some point, come back and talk about some inventive ideas. I think that we might, post it on eBay for one thing. I mean, we may get more than $25,000. I don't want to let it go too cheap. Certainly want to get every dime that the city can wring out of that truck. It's still operationally, it'll operate today. If we have a fire this afternoon, we'll drive that truck out, and it's operationally sound. So it's got a good transmission in it, a good engine. But eBay would be an option. There's several other auction type venues that would be available.
Okay. Any of the other commissioners have questions of staff?
Yeah. How many times, since 1984, if you could break it down on an annual basis, how many calls has the current platform truck, do you think, gone out on?
We responded to a lot of building fires. If you say how many times do we actually deploy it in a life-threatening type situation, probably a handful of times over those 20 years. Most recently, you saw it at the Anderson fire. It was deployed at the Anderson fire. My history with this department goes back 2.5 years. Chief Edgar might be able to talk about going back further, but this is one of those pieces of equipment that you don't use real often, but when you do and you have to make rescues and things of that nature out of buildings, this is the piece of equipment that you really use. In fact, one of the things that we did with our current aerial platform truck is when they built the new section on the hospital. In fact, we have slides of that on the computer. When they built the new section, we took our old aerial platform truck, which is 100 foot, and let's see if we can reach the roof of the new addition to the hospital. And it can set to the top of the roof. The basket will reach the top of the roof, and that's key and critical to us, because there's a helicopter pad up there. There's also a fire system that protects that helicopter pad, but many systems, depending upon the situation, can function as designed or malfunction. What we don't want to have happen is have a situation where we have a helicopter crash up there and not be able to reach the roof with this aerial platform truck and rescue people off the other end or things of that nature. It becomes very critical for us to be able to do those kinds of things. And with our 100-foot aerial platform truck, we can do that. So if we choose not to have this kind of a truck, we'll lose that capability. And getting people into the basket or reaching out over the water in some fashion, I listened to the discussion about potentially water safety issues with reconfiguring the river and things of that nature through the downtown area. I've seen many instances where, in my professional career, where they've taken those aerial platforms and extended them out over bodies of water and either lifted people or firefighters rappelled down into the water to save people and things like that. It's a very important capability to operate out of that basket and to have a stable platform in which to conduct rescues out of buildings or have people rappel down to save other people or fight fire out of.
I don't know, in your opinion, what additional features did the Pierce have, or additional specs did the Pierce meet that the Rosenbauer did not?
When I look at what the Pierce met, it met most all of them. Like I said, the critical ones, there was only one with the cab interior that didn't meet. They had specified the extreme duty cab interior that the Pierce didn't meet. There were several specifications that the Rosenbauer did not meet. One of them, for example, is rung cover warranty, the covers that on the rungs. The committee asked for a 10-year warranty. Pierce meets the 10-year warranty on rung covers. For whatever reason, Rosenbauer does not meet that.
Okay.
But I would invite invite you to ask questions of the apparatus committee because they really studied them in depth.
Just a couple thoughts, Commissioners. When you put together a bid package for a piece of equipment like this, the bid package, the specifications that we put out are considered to be minimum specifications. And it's quite honestly, it's real easy when you have multiple vendors of the same type of product. They're all going to be different, whether it be, you may see some similarities, you may see similar transmissions, for example, you may even see similar engines, but you're going to see some differences, whether it be the frame, whether it be storage compartments, electronic components, just certain dimensions, you're going to see differences along the way. And typically what happens is you can do specs multiple ways. You can take specs and say, for example, for storage compartments, I want X number and I want a range of the size from this dimension to that dimension. Or a lot of times you may be focusing on a particular product and you might just basically spec that and then put language that says that you'll accept and review other submittals that are similar and you'll compare against those. But ultimately, when you do that, you need to have a pretty good idea of really what you're speccing out. For example, if you look at just an automobile, you could start at an entry-level compact automobile all the way up to, let's say, a luxury car. And there's going to be a difference in price and a difference in features. And you need to figure out what are the core features, the core functional features versus features that might be important but maybe lean on the side of convenience that you'd like to have, but in the end may or may not be worth it. What you want to be really careful of doing is possibly leaning towards a product that does exceed your specifications at a higher cost, because if you can go that way, but if you do go that way, then you get to explain to another vendor that met the core specifications why you didn't go with them, and they get to ask you then, well, why didn't you spec at a higher level to begin with, because I possibly could have offered a product that met that, but I didn't think you were going there, so I didn't do it, so I met your specifications. So you got to be a little bit careful about buying up in essence when you're doing that. So I think the key with all this is trying to figure out and be sure we're comfortable with what are the core specifications for functionality and what are things that really aren't considered core and making that decision. And when you look at those things that aren't considered core, trying to weigh that with a fairly significant difference in price based on what we're looking for.
Would you want me to read what Engineer Turner had to say, or would you like to hear from him directly?
I have one more question first. I know we have a Pierce platform truck right now, and I don't know if you guys hire out the maintenance work or do it yourself, but I suppose there's spare parts that come with that. Are we going to have to buy all new spare parts if we go with the Rosenbauer, or are there pieces and parts that we can use off the current truck?
Scott, why don't you answer that? I'll have Chief Advocate come up here.
Mayor and Commissioners, the only spare parts that we keep for any of our apparatus, and we do our own maintenance in-house for the most part, really are filters and those kinds of things for the apparatus that we have. Any parts that we would need to make a repair to an apparatus, we're going to have to order from the various vendors that provide those. That's been one of the problems with the current Pierce LTI apparatus that we have. LTI stands for Ladder Tower Industries. Ladder Tower Industries was purchased by American LaFrance, which went bankrupt. So we are having an increasingly difficult time acquiring solenoids and electronic components in particular that allow the aerial to rotate and elevate and those kinds of things for that LTI portion of the Pierce platform. But we would not have to replace an inventory of spare parts. And quite frankly, most of the filters we have a standardized, have had a standardized engine configuration, transmission configuration that allows us to use primarily the same filters and things for each of our apparatus.
Thank you.
Scott, just a second.
Chief, I just did want to say thank you for making this recommendation and trying to save us and taxpayers, right at $72,500, and being flexible and creative and trying to think of ways to get the best price on selling our old platform truck.
Any other comments?
Makes my stomach turn.
It's a big purchase. You're making a generational purchase today.
That's a lot of potato salad. Inside joke. I'll tell you another thing, besides echoing that I appreciate that. I totally trust your thoughts on this and your opinions, and you did all the research, and you've got people that this is their expertise and this is what they look at. So the only reason I think we're all up here with our stomachs churning is because of that price tag. And again, Commissioner Opke mentioned not too long ago that when it comes to the safety of our citizens, I mean, we really want the best. But yeah, that price tag is a little hard to swallow. But taking all that in consideration, when I read why you didn't recommend the SMEAL, that's why I asked the question on the flow, what the other two had. What about warranties? Are you comfortable with the warranty? Did it meet your criteria then? Because evidently SMEAL did not.
Right.
So you're happy with the years and the longevity that they have warranted. And again, if your staff feels comfortable with this, that's really all the reassurance I need, because I trust your opinion.
Well, we've had some internal debates because over the equipment, and because there is a component of specifications that you look at, and does somebody meet those and not. And I got to give Engineer Turner a lot of compliments in how he devised the letter that he wrote, because he makes the argument in here that from a personal standpoint, an operational standpoint, being able to operate, they like the Pierce truck. Their number 2 pick was the Rosenbauer. For me personally, looking at what I see where there's nothing wrong, there's no reason not to give it to Rosenbauer, because I think they substantially meet the specifications. It will do what we ask and things of that nature.
And save us a couple of nickels along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is their waterway, is that aluminum, or what is that made of?
It is aluminum. And one of the things that I think we get into is that all of the personnel take us very seriously, and so they put in hundreds of hours in putting all this together, writing the specifications, sending them out. I really have the luxurious job of sitting on the back end of that and reviewing that when they get done with it, and so the main credit belongs to them in their work.
Chief, since we don't have the attachment, were there any safety concerns raised in the letter?
No,
Purchasing the
I didn't have
Rosenbauer?
any safety concerns, and I didn't see any in it. Dave, do you want to talk for just a little bit? I want to introduce you to Dave Turner. He's also the chief of one of our surrounding rural fire departments. Dave does a wonderful job out there running a fire district department, and couldn't be prouder of him. He's one of our best and finest engineers. Dave?
To answer your question, both the Pierce and the Rosenbauer meet the safety standard to what I would call, or the review committee would call, the best of the best. Pierce did exceed it in crash test rating for the cab chassis, but other than that, Rosenbauer and Pierce were, neck and neck on everything. To go into a little further, to break down the sheet that you guys didn't get. Once I took the spec, we got it back, the committee looked at it, we sat down, and I listed 60 items out that I thought was the most important thing out of the specs. And when I did that, Smil obviously came in the lowest, Pierce came in the highest, and then Rosenbauer was in the middle. Rosenbauer hit about 85 to 86% of the spec. Pierce hit about 98% of the spec. So I understand the reasoning behind the 72,000. I mean, I deal with it every day out in the county, and I understand where the chief is coming from. It's just I had the luxury of going to E1 Pierce. I've been to almost every major dealer across the United States in the last 3 or 4 years. My last 2 trips were at E1 and Pierce. The thing that my letter does state is E1, other than they didn't meet our specification, I thought it outperformed all the aerials. They were just by far the best product on the market, but unfortunately due to our specification, they were kicked out, and plus they were also high. which brought us down to the Pierce, Rosenbauer, Schmiel, Toyne, Toyne was kicked out because of their financial stability too. So it basically gave us 3 bids to deal with. And Chief's not lying, we spent a lot of time, and it was a lot of sleepless nights for me because I do believe Pierce was the better truck. I think Rosenbauer makes a fine quality truck. It's just Pierce is, in my opinion, the number 2 truck that's manufactured. And it's got nothing to do with Rosenbauer. I love them to death. I got 2 of them out in the county. It's just for the city of Salina, I think the $72,000 shouldn't be overlooked, but I think it should err to the standard that we need to put at the fire department. And we've already had several Pierces in service, which outstanding lifespan on them. The resale on them, in my books, is higher than your average manufacturer. But other than that, Schmiel missed a couple of other major items. The independent front suspension we spec'd out in the spec. They spec'd a regular I-beam suspension, and the reason for the independent front suspension was due to maintenance issues, brakes issues, not having to change brakes as often, better ride with the ladder. I mean, we have a lot of weight on top of this truck that's bouncing, and with that independent front suspension, it pretty much eliminates that bounce in that truck. So it's going to help in the longevity of the ladder and on the front end as well. And there were several other issues that Schmiel was missing, and like I said, my number 2 recommendation was the Rosenbauer. So I'm not going to complain other than Pierce was the truck. So.
Any questions of Mr. Turner?
Well, I was thinking to myself, I sort of agree that $72,000 over the course of 20 years averages out to be fairly negligible, but if you're also only responding to a handful of calls over 20 years with this
Right.
truck, then
Dave, was there anything in particular on the difference in the products that you think would have an impact at a fire scene or at a rescue scene?
No, I think they would all operate to satisfaction.
Okay, thanks.
There is one thing I'd like to correct Dave on. The chief never lies. Said the chief ain't lying. He'll never lie, so that's correct.
you guys can have that talk back at the station.
There you go. There you go.
Any other questions of Chief Mulliken or his staff? Thank you. Thank you for your long, hard hours and your loss of sleep. I'll open it up to public comment.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Roger Brown with Conrad Fire and Pierce representative. I just wanted to take a couple of moments and thank you for the opportunity to bid on this apparatus. And as David mentioned, they have had several Pierce apparatus in the city of Salina for a number of years, and they have provided very good service. Some of the bullet points that I would like to address: one, the committee went to great lengths and hundreds of hours, as that's been made aware of, to develop a set of specifications for their needs. And Pierce met 98% of those specifications according to the layout that David done. I guess the $72,000 is what's looming out there, the difference in the price of trucks. And the reason that the $72,000 is there is because of the compliancy of the specifications. We can certainly provide you an aerial platform truck for less money. And I'm fortunate enough to be driving a demo today that I have parked over Station 1 that is a lot less than the one that we have bid. We try to meet the specifications 100% when we can when we bid a truck. And that's exactly what we've done. But there are certainly less expensive trucks out there. and we sell less expensive trucks. In fact, the one that I have sitting across the street's $855,000. So, does the same thing, same functionality as far as having a pump, tank, chassis to carry it there and an aerial platform on top. I think of course, there's thousands of different options on a fire truck, and those are the things that you look at. And without eating up all afternoon and evening for the commission and mayor of going over each line item, that's something that you need to consider is the percentage of compliancy of the specifications that the committee actually developed. So our parent company is Oshkosh Truck, been around since 1913. Pierce Manufacturing's been around since 1913, have tremendous financial stability, publicly traded company under the OSK symbol. So I guess I'd open it up to any questions. I do have a sheet of bullet points that are advantages to the Pierce apparatus over any other manufacturer. So I guess I'd open up to questions if you have of me. If not, I will get away from the podium here and let you make a decision.
Sorry, I missed your name.
Roger Brown. I'm sorry.
Roger Brown. You probably said it, but I was writing. Where is your company? Where's the headquarters?
The factory's in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I guess, Roger, I don't have a question for you, but you brought up a point. I want to be clear on this bid process. We talked about a list of maybe 60 criteria or something like that. Was it such that Pierce met 98% of that criteria? Rosenbauer did not, and then we went back through and said, well, if we just look at the essentials, Rosenbauer actually still meets that and comes in lower. How? If someone could come up and maybe speak to that.
I think when you take a look at apparatus, you know, the trucks are all going to have 10 tires. They're going to have an engine, they're going to have a transmission, they're going to have a pump, and they're going to have a tank on them, going to carry the personnel there, and they're going to do the job. But there obviously are specifications that the committee felt important that we tried to meet, and
Okay.
if we could, you know, take a look at those things and possibly drop back to the same compliancy, you would certainly notice a price difference. So I'll get out of here and let Chief Mulliken address that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for visiting us today.
Larry, when you're talking about that, I guess I have a question now too. That I think goes right along with Commissioner Peck's question. When we first started with a reference point to create our specs, did we basically start with the Pierce product?
Basically.
So it wasn't really a coincidence then that Pierce was 98%. So, and then when you look at all those specs, as we talked about before, you have kind of those core functional specs, and you have a lot of ancillary things that be nice if you could get them, but then you have to weigh the difference in price.
Generally, you will start out with an idea of what you want in a truck, and you might use a manufacturer's specifications as a guide. For an example, rail height. On the rail height of the aerial ladder, the rails along the side of the ladder, the specifications basically were like Pierce builds them. Now, Rosenbauer has a little different rail height within a few inches, and it did meet the specifications. That doesn't mean that 2 inches less in rail height makes it any less safe. It doesn't. It just did not meet that specification that we used, and that was one of the things, one of the major components about when I told you that operationally, that the Rosenbauer would meet everything that we would want it to do. It's much like when Engineer Turner mentioned the independent front suspension versus a straight axle. To me, a straight axle truck will drive to the fire just like an independent front suspension truck will. Both of them will get us there. I didn't see that as a major point operationally that would stop the truck from getting there. You know, the things that I saw was we're buying a 2,000-gallon minute pump and we can't shove 2,000-gallon minutes through the waterway. You know, that kind of thing. That to me is the operational issues that I think caused me to have pause in awarding the bid to Schmiel, because I think that's a problem with that. And the steel waterway, we already have an issue with that. So I want to sidestep that. With those things being said, I thought Rosenbauer met significantly the same specifications that Pierce did, and that there would not be any difference to us whether we got the Rosenbauer or the Pierce truck. With that, I'll let Dave you want to say something?
I guess just to clarify, I just want to make sure we're actually being fair on the bidding process is my only concern here. That if we set a certain criteria out there and ask that companies bid on that, and then we go with an inferior package, I guess I understand weighing out the cost and everything, but if someone can bid something that is considerably less, if they would have only known that that's what they were competing against, or if that's what they had to match, then I just want to make sure this is a fair process.
Yeah, bidding is always a bit tricky when you're working with something that's really as complicated as a fire truck. But for example, you could take a vehicle bid, a pickup, and we could spec out a Ford, and no one else would meet that spec, whether it be the battery or something, the horsepower. You could cut it off somewhere. You could spec out other bidders. That's one thing we want to be careful not to do, which is why really when we get into a situation where they meet the core aspects of it, that's when you really start weighing the other aspects to the dollars. And to me, the most important thing is, again, how quickly and how effectively can it get to where you're going to use it, how effectively does it work when you get it there, and how long is it going to last for you? Do you get your money's worth in the long term? And those are the main things. And you obviously want to be able to hold all of your equipment so you don't have to bring another vehicle along. That's pretty important too. So to me, that's the real important thing when you're going to weigh that difference in dollars, because as they mentioned, this was really in essence spec using the Pierce specs to begin with as a starting point, which is fine, and that's why you make sure and you have open language that opens it up to other bidders. But by doing that, you're automatically going to provide one bidder with a higher percentage of meeting the spec than you would another bidder. The question then simply just becomes, what are those differences, and are they important enough in the use of the piece of equipment and apparatus?
One of the things about SMEAL, which perfectly illustrates the city manager's point, is that the SMEAL at its elevation at 72 degrees, reaches 99 feet 9 inches, 3 inches less than 100 feet. Our specification says 100-foot aerial platform. Now, does 3 inches kick SMEAL out? No, I didn't think so. I didn't think that was, if not, I would have listed that as one of the reasons why I did not decide on SMEAL for that reason, that it lacks reach of what we specified. 3 inches is not going to make a difference at elevation, that kind of thing. But Dave, why don't you talk about where the specifications come from, how they were modified, because all specifications, as Jason said, start with some type of model. You add some of the new things on there that's coming down the pike that will be important for the future out years of this truck, because like I said, it has a 20-year history, and you try to design the best set of specifications for this truck.
I'm actually okay on the specs. I don't.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just wanted to make sure that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Two of the key things that I think, one on the chassis and the other on the aerial, that we were the only ones that actually meet those specifications, is warranty on the chassis. The chassis that was specified carries a 3-year bumper-to-bumper warranty on the chassis itself. And the other on the aerial, on wind rating testing and ice buildup testing that Pierce does that no one else in the industry does. We're actually rated at a 50-mile-an-hour wind condition with full capacity, plus a quarter of inch of ice buildup and another 150 pounds of equipment in the bucket that nobody else actually meets those specifications. So one, warranty is going to mean something to you dollar-wise down the road. Two, the wind rating of the aerial and the ice buildup is certainly a consideration here in Kansas. So from a safety standpoint, that would be a consideration. Thanks.
Just out of curiosity also, where is the Rosenbauer company from?
It's out of Lyon, South Dakota.
Okay, so that's South Dakota. Okay.
And I want to make a correction with Roger. It was a 2-year bumper-to-bumper warranty.
Okay.
So they all met the spec on that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other public comment? I guess we were at that stage where we had opened it up to public comment. Any other public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the purchase of the Rosenbauer aerial platform truck, the amount of $859,682.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of the Rosenbauer aerial platform truck in the amount of $859,682. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0.
Item 8.4, approve the responsibility for temporary traffic crossover interlocal cooperation agreement for South 9th Street Improvement Project with Saline County.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Last week, we started the South 9th Street project. Construction got underway, and county has been involved with that project when it was Phase 4 and 5. And then when we cut it back to Phase 4, just to construct that portion in the city, they were not as involved as much, and we did not get their permission to construct a crossover in their right-of-way ahead of time. So last week, we met and got those details worked out, and this is the results of that before you today.
Questions of Mr. Stack? Thank you. If not, I'll open it up to public comment. If there is none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I would move that we authorize you to sign the Saline County Interlocal Cooperation Agreement relating to the responsibility for temporary traffic crossover for South 9th Street Improvement Project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the responsibility for the temporary traffic crossover interlocal cooperative agreement for the South 9th Street Improvement Project with Saline County. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. There is no other business.
Mayor, I'd move we adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.